playing so well right now, he's actually, in my view, elevating his position on the all-time list because he's now hitting peaks that are just absurd. And I noticed this with aging great players, including LeBron James. In order to stay at that level that they've reached, they need to be so cerebral. They need to rely on their wisdom and their experience so much to compensate for anything they've lost physically that I mentioned the Last Dragon a couple days ago. They got that glow, the Bruce Leroy glow or the Sho'nuff glow. Like they're operating on a whole other level at a certain point. Now, I bring up the cliff because that's usually what happens. In order for them to get there, they're compensating for other things that aren't there. Then all of a sudden, even that's not enough, and they fall off. Drew Brees is 39, and I do notice that with a lot of these players that I mentioned, that Derek Jeter had a renaissance year like that. It's right before they're not the same anymore. Drew Brees is playing out of his mind great. Mahomes, Goff, Gurley, Aaron Donald. There are so many other candidates where if they have a strong push in the last third of the season and Drew Brees loses a couple games, which is possible, MVP is someone else's. At this moment, clearly the MVP, too much football left.
I think as long as the Saints keep winning, this is going to be Drew Brees' award to lose. And the only reason that the Saints won't win is because Drew starts to not play quite as well. And I don't see that happening. I think the shame, though, is that we're finally talking about this guy as an MVP after he had already thrown for 5,000 yards 5 different times in his career already. And the fact that he had never really been taken seriously. The reason why he's being taken serious now is because there's been so much attention drawn to the fact that offenses right now are putting up numbers at a ridiculous Star Wars-like rate because defensive play in the NFL is absolutely, to be honest with you, it's pathetic in one word. It's pathetic. So now there's so much attention on how offenses have become so innovative and how now it's an offensive-driven league and all the brain powers on the offensive side of the ball as far as play callers are concerned. And look, Drew was just one of those people who was just taking advantage of that trend right now.
You think it's that?
So
you think he has his best weapons ever?
Well, no, I don't know. Look, Drew has always had some pretty good weapons. I think he has his best weapons in terms of he has a balanced attack now, and he has a defense now that can play championship caliber football when they're playing at their very best.
You don't think there's something about the way he's like, but he's throwing guys open who aren't open, and they
Max, he's been doing this for a long time. He's been doing this for a long time. And if you also look at a lot of his completions to Mike Thomas is uncontested 70-80% of the time because I am so disenchanted with defensive play in the NFL right now. That would be a whole other show. It'd be a whole other show. But I am not going to take anything away from Drew. He will be in a neck-and-neck race with Patrick as they go down the stretch here. If Patrick had pulled out that game against the Rams the other night, then maybe we'd be talking about a very, very tight race here. And that now you have to almost put guys like Aaron Donald on the back burner, who's having a historic year for defensive tackles.
Well, Donald, Gurley, and Goff
right
split that vote, unfortunately, because they're all candidates.
Yep.
Yeah, but Max, you listen, Mr. Captain Obvious. Of course, we have about 5 weeks to go in the NFL season. We understand that there are games that need to play. I mean, saying that, we got that. What I'm saying is that I don't believe that we'll see any deviation in play from what we're seeing from Drew Brees. Now, I will say this to you, Max. Here's where it gets a bit dicey, and it augments your point. 2 games are against Carolina for New Orleans. 2. And they got a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so when I look at it from that perspective, not the Pittsburgh Steelers from earlier this season, the Pittsburgh Steelers that actually look like they have a secondary now. And so because of that, okay, it can get very interesting. But here's why I love Drew Brees still. It's not just because of what he's doing, Lewis, for example. It's because of what they will demand he does, because of what those opposing offenses are capable or should be capable of doing against New Orleans defense. The fact is that you're going to be called upon. You got to look at the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. Defensively, they were a bit strapped. Offensively, the offensive line wasn't protecting Matt Ryan at all. Got sacked about 5 or 6 times, okay? They fumbled the ball 5 times. They lost 2 of them. And so when you look at it from that perspective, we got to understand that the Atlanta Falcons didn't do much to help themselves last night. I don't think that'll be the case with Pittsburgh. I don't think that'll be the case with Carolina. I think they'll be more effective and more efficient. As a result, it will call upon Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and those boys to step their game up offensively even more so than we saw last night. And that's what I'm going to love that.
The Saints' defense has been real recently.
I know that.
Sleep on that.
I know that, but I just think that I'm just
Steve,
saying I think the offense is. I think Pittsburgh's is high powered, and I think one of those games, because it's a division rivalry, Carolina will show up, and New Orleans is going to explode even more, which will make Drew Brees look just fine.
Wait a minute. Can I ask you a question? Why didn't you mention the Dallas Cowboys defense? Why didn't you mention the Cowboys defense that they have to play?
Why would I? That's the pass.
Because you should.
That's the pass. We want to focus on. We want to focus on the present and the future. That's the pass. That's the pass, Lewis. That's the pass.
But when
we don't want to live in the past.
Like
we want
yesterday.
to live in the
Right,
past.
we gotta go, you guys.
Defense, by the way, different from Mahomes and Breeze. Is Breeze has a defense. Breeze has a defense. Quarterback gets credit for that. Let's be honest.
Cowboys have a defense too. Thanks for pointing that out.